It is the blackest hour of the night, and the sun is dead. Not setting, dead. It has sailed off the edge of the living world and gone down into the underworld, into a river of absolute dark, and it is being carried through that dark on a boat, because in ancient Egypt that is what the sun does every single night. It dies. It makes the crossing. And whether it climbs back into the sky come morning is not a promise. It has to be fought for, because something is waiting down there in the black water, and it wants to make sure the sun never rises again. A serpent, not a snake, a serpent as long as the night itself, coiled clean across the width of the river, and its name is Apophis. And Apophis does not want to rule the world or eat a village or sit on a throne. It wants nothing so small. It wants the world to stop existing. It is the hunger of pure nothing, and every night it rises out of the dark to swallow the sun and drag all of creation back down into the void it crawled out of. And you are on that boat. Every person who has ever lived and everyone who ever will is on that boat, because if the sun does not come up, then none of it, not you, not anyone, was ever really here at all. So tell me, who stands at the front of that ship, spear in hand, in the last dark before the end of everything? Who is strong enough and violent enough to kill the thing that would unmake the world? It's the murderer, it's the god of chaos and the desert and the storm. It's the one the movies made their villain. It's the bad brother, the one you were taught to boo. It's Set. Sit with that for a second. The single figure in the whole Egyptian story that you were taught to read as evil, the fratricide, the god of darkness, the bad brother, is the one thing standing between all of creation and the actual end of it. Every night, everyone told you he was the monster, and he's the one holding the spear. You know him, or you think you do. You've met his version on a screen. A towering, golden, beautiful god of darkness, armor gleaming, murdering his own good brother out of pure jealousy so he can seize the throne and rule the world in cruelty. A god of evil, plain and simple, the kind the hero has to strike down at the end so the light can win. He makes a magnificent villain. He is also a flattening, a whole god squeezed down into one word, and the word is wrong. The real Set of the old Egyptian texts is a stranger, wilder, far more necessary thing than that. And here is the part I want to lodge under your ribs tonight. For most of Egyptian history, he was not the villain at all. He was the bodyguard of the sun. I'm the myth keeper. I have walked the desert at the edge of the red land where nothing grows, where his winds come up out of nowhere and turn the whole sky the color of blood. And I can tell you the true story of this god is so much bigger and so much stranger than the cartoon of pure evil. So come with me out past the green fields, out to where the order ends, and let me introduce you to the god the screen turned into a villain. Because once you've met the real one, you're never going to look at a story's monster the same way again. Let's start with what he actually is, because the Egyptians did not think in the tidy way we do. We split the world into good and evil, heroes and villains, light and dark, and we expect a god to pick a side. The Egyptians didn't. Their whole cosmos ran on a single idea they called Ma'at, order, balance, truth, the way things are supposed to be. Ma'at is the green field, the flooding river that feeds it, the sun that rises on time, the law, the shape of a just life. And everything that threatens Ma'at, everything wild and disordered and dangerous, they called Isfet, chaos. And here is the thing our neat little villain boxes miss completely. The Egyptians did not believe chaos could simply be destroyed and gotten rid of. Chaos was always there, pressing in from every edge, the desert beyond the fields, the dark beyond the day, the storm beyond the calm. Order didn't win by wiping chaos out. Order survived by holding chaos in its place. And to do that, to stand at the border between the world and the howling nothing outside it, you do not send a gentle god. You send the strongest, wildest, most dangerous power you have. You send chaos to fight chaos. You send Set, because that is what Set is. He is the desert, the red land, desert, the burning waste where nothing grows, as against the black, fertile mud of the living valley. He is the storm and the thunder and the sandstorm that blots out the sun at noon. He is the strength that has no manners. He is the outsider, the disruptor, the one who does not fit and does not calm down. And the Egyptians looked at all of that raw, frightening force, and they did not simply call it evil and look away. They put a spear in its hand and set it at the front of the boat. Because every night when the sun god Ra sails his ship down through the underworld, and Apophis, that serpent of pure non-being, rises up to swallow the light and end the world, there is exactly one god the texts say can meet it. The coffin texts and the funeral spells are clear about who stands at the prow. It is Set. The god of chaos is the only thing violent enough to kill the chaos that would end everything. Every single night he drives his spear into the coils of that serpent and holds the monster off and buys the sun one more sunrise. And in the morning when the light comes up over the river and the fields go gold and you wake up still alive in a world that still exists, that is Set's doing as much as anyone's. The god you were told to fear is the reason the day exists to fear him in. Now hold on, I can hear you, because you know the other story. You know he killed his brother, and he did. The Mythkeeper doesn't lie to you, and I'm not going to pretend the darkest thing about Set isn't true, so let me tell it plainly. In the beginning of things, the story goes, the good king of Egypt was Osiris, Set's own brother, who taught people to farm and gave them law and was loved. And Set was not loved the same way, and something in him could not bear it. So he laid a trap. He had a beautiful chest made, measured in secret to fit Osiris exactly, and at a feast he offered it as a prize. Whoever fits inside it perfectly may keep it. And when Osiris, laughing, lay down inside and found he fit, Set and his helpers slammed the lid, sealed it fast, and threw it into the river to be carried out to sea. And later, when the grieving Isis had found her husband's body and hidden it, Set found it too, and this time he tore it into pieces and scattered them the length of Egypt so it could never be whole again. That is the murder. I'm not softening it. Set killed the good king by a trick out of jealousy, and it is one of the oldest crimes in any story we have. But here is where you have to hold two things at once, and where the Egyptians were so much more grown-up than our hero and villain reflex lets us be. The same God who committed that murder is the same God at the prow of the boat holding off the end of the world. They did not resolve that contradiction. They lived inside it. Because that is what chaos is. The force that can murder the harvest with a storm is the same force that can defend the whole cosmos with a spear, and you do not get one without the other. Set is not evil the way a devil is evil, choosing wickedness for its own sake. Set is dangerous the way lightning is dangerous, necessary, powerful, and absolutely not to be left in charge of the throne. And the myths know that. Because after the murder comes the long fight for the crown, and it is one of the strangest, most human stories the Egyptians ever told. It's written down for us in a New Kingdom papyrus scholars call the contendings of Horus and Seth, and it is not the tale of a hero smiting a devil. It's a lawsuit. It goes on, the text says, for 80 years. Horus, the son of the murdered Osiris, claims his father's throne. Set, the uncle, claims it by strength. And instead of a single clean battle, the two of them drag each other in front of the assembled gods again and argue and cheat, and compete in contest after contest, a race in stone boats, a series of tricks and disguises, while the gods sit there like an exhausted panel of judges who cannot agree and just want it to be over. And in that story, Set is not a slavering monster. He's a rival. He's loud, he's proud, he's a little bit of a cheat, he loses his temper, but he's also, again and again, the strong one the gods actually want on their side. Because here's a detail people forget. Even after everything, even after the murder, when the gods finally do settle the throne on Horus, they do not destroy Set. The sun god Ra takes him. Set goes up to ride in the boat of heaven, at the prow, to fight the serpent, because you do not throw away the only weapon strong enough to save the world just because it frightens you. Egypt did not kill its god of chaos. It gave him a job at the edge of everything and told him to point all that terrible strength outward at the dark. So let me tell you something that I think is the single most honest fact about Set, and it's a fact about time. The Egyptians worshipped these gods for more than 3,000 years, longer than the distance between us and them, twice over. And across those thousands of years, they changed their minds about Set, completely. In the oldest layers we have the pyramid texts, carved inside royal tombs more than 4,000 years ago. Set is not the enemy, he's a protector. He helps the dead king climb into the sky. His strength is a good thing, a royal thing. Kings were proud to be linked to him. There were pharaohs, real ones, whose very names were built out of his Seti, which means more or less man of Set. Imagine that. Imagine a king so unbothered by this so-called god of evil that he stamped the name onto himself and wore it on his monuments for all eternity. That is not how you treat a devil. That is how you treat a powerful ancestor you're proud to claim. But then history did what history does. Egypt was invaded and ruled for a time by foreigners from the east, and later fell under one foreign power after another. And somewhere in all of that, Set, god of the desert, god of the outsider, god of the lands beyond Egypt's border, got tangled up with the foreigner, the invader, the enemy at the edge. And a god who stood for the outsider became a very easy god to hate. Slowly, over centuries, the protector curdled into the villain. His images started to be chiseled off temple walls. His name was scratched out. The strong uncle who guarded the sun was rewritten into the murderer who threatened the world. The Egyptians, in the end, did to Set exactly what the movies would do to him 3,000 years later. They made him the enemy. The scholar who mapped all of this most carefully, a man named Herman T. Velde, who wrote the book we still point to, Seth, God of Confusion, put it beautifully. Set is not a god of clean evil. He's the god of confusion, of disorder, of the necessary trouble at the edge of things. A god the system needs and can never quite trust. And now let me be honest with you about the sources, because that honesty is the whole point of this channel, and Set is a case where it really matters. That neat, connected story I told you, the chest, the sealed lid, the body torn into pieces and scattered, the fullest single version of it that survives does not actually come to us from an Egyptian at all. It comes from a Greek. A writer named Plutarch, in an essay called On Isis and Osiris, set it all down in one flowing tale around 100 years after the birth of Christ, which is more than 2,000 years after the oldest Egyptian bits of it. The Egyptians themselves never left us one tidy connected narrative. They left us scattered spells and hymns and pictures, and Plutarch, a brilliant outsider, wove them into the story we now repeat. And Plutarch did one more thing. He looked at Set and he called him by a Greek name, Typhon, the most monstrous, chaotic, purely evil creature in all of Greek myth, the thing even the Greek gods barely survived. So the version of Set that came down to the West, the flattened god of pure evil, was in part a Greek writer laying a Greek monster's mask over an Egyptian god who was never quite that simple. Versions disagree. The pyramid texts and Plutarch do not describe the same being, and anyone who tells you the Egyptian Set was always and only the devil is selling you the last edit and calling it the original. I'd rather you hold the real tangle than a tidy lie. So let me hold the two of them up side by side now, the way this channel always does the god on the screen and the god in the texts, because the gap between them tells you something. The screen version, the great golden god of darkness in his gleaming armor, is pure appetite. He murders for a throne. He wants to rule, to dominate, to burn the world into his own image, and he has to be stopped by a shining hero so the light can win. He is chaos imagined as ambition, evil that simply wants to be in charge, and he makes a wonderful villain, but he's a costume. The real Set is not trying to run the world. He couldn't be trusted to, and everyone in the myth knows it, including him. He's the strength kept out at the border, pointed at the dark. He is the storm you need and cannot tame, the violence that guards the gate against a far worse violence, the dangerous uncle the family cannot love and cannot afford to lose. Yes, he did a terrible thing. And yes, every single night he is the only one who saves us from something far more terrible than himself. The screen made chaos a tyrant to be defeated. The myth made chaos a guard to be endured. Those are not the same story at all. And now turn that toward yourself, because this is the part I really want you to carry out of here. We did this. We are the ones who keep taking the necessary shadow and painting a villain's face on it. And we do it for the same reason. The Egyptians finally did it to Set, because a pure villain is so much easier to live with than a necessary darkness. It is easier to point at the outsider, the disruptor, the angry one, the one who doesn't fit, and say there, that one, that's the evil. If we could just be rid of that, we'd be safe. Than to admit the harder truth the Egyptians spent 3,000 years staring at. That the strength that frightens you and the strength that protects you are so often the very same strength. That you cannot cut the storm out of the world and keep the rain. That the disruptive, difficult, dangerous force you want to banish out there, or honestly in yourself, might be the exact thing standing at the prow when the real nothing comes. That's the trade Egypt understood and we keep forgetting. They didn't get a safe, gentle guardian of the sun. They got Set a murderer with a spear, a god you'd never turn your back on, holding the line at the edge of the world every night because he was the only one who could. They didn't pretend he was good. They didn't pretend they could do without him. They just kept him at the border, doing the one terrible job that only chaos can do, and they were honest enough to be grateful for it. So the next time you meet the god of darkness in a story, the golden villain, the bad brother, the one the hero has to strike down so the light can win, I want you to stop and look a little closer and ask who put that mask on him and when and why. Because it almost certainly wasn't the oldest myth. The oldest myth, the real one carved in stone before anyone thought to hate him, knew something we keep trying to unlearn. That the world is not divided cleanly into the ones who protect us and the ones who frighten us. That more often than we can stand, they are the same. So here's what I honestly want to know, down in the comments, and I'll be reading them. Which screen villain turned out to be something far stranger once you met the real myth behind them? Set, Hades, Hell, Medusa, Loki. Who did the move his frame? Tell me which mask you'd like me to take off next. And then the harder one, the one I keep turning over myself, is there a force in your own life you've filed away as the villain, the disruptive one, the storm you wish you could be rid of? That might, if you were honest, be the very thing holding your own line at the edge of the dark. Sit with that one. I'm the myth keeper. This whole channel is about the gods you think you know, and the far stranger, far older ones the real texts actually wrote down, the true ones, behind the costumes the screen handed them. So come back out to the edge of the red land with me again soon. There's a whole desert full of them out there, and not one is quite the monster you were told.